It's story time with the Histories, with your hosts, Matt Marine and Jen Dumas.
Presented by Anchor FM.
This is what I've been trying to tell you about writing these scripts.
I agree.
The soft intro. It's hard.
I didn't believe you at first. I'm like, it can't be that hard, but connecting it to content, it's a challenge.
In a way that's like meaningful, that you can launch the episode.
Yeah.
So I just have my ticks. I have my fallbacks. I'm like, well, it's going to be a pop culture reference or whatever we're going to be talking about, and then just try to let the conversation lead in.
Yeah, I'm going to have to work on my soft intro skills. I'm not going to lie.
It's the hardest part. Everything else is like so clear and laid out, and then you're like, I don't even know how we're going to start. Like right now, we're recording. We're recording this, and there's like people right now tearing their headphones out.
Right, because they're like, this is so stupid.
Your headphones out. Everybody's got like Bluetooth enabled everything.
Yeah, it's true. But now at least I know how our students feel when like they're writing their intros. They're like, I don't know how to start. I'm like, I get it.
Yeah, most people don't know how to start. Yeah.
We do need to get started.
Let's hop right into it.
Hey everybody, welcome again to Storytime with the Historists, where we tell history our way, full of humor, honesty, and a lot of hot takes. We're your hosts, Jen Dumas and Matt Breen, and today we're going to go all the way back to the fall of the Mongols and the rise of the Middle Kingdom once again under the Ming Dynasty.
Yeah, there's a lot of information for today's episode that we're going to be delving into. And so for today, we're looking at a couple of series that I know you really picked your way through, which must have been hard for you to nail down, like which sources you really wanted to use for this.
It was.
This is your bag. This is your thing. Yeah. So we're taking a look at Global China, from the Mongols to the Ming. It's a series led by Dr. William Bull, professor of East Asian languages and studies at Harvard, and Dr. William Kirby's director of Fairbanks Center for Chinese Studies at Harvard. So some pretty heavy hitters here, giving us some information.
Yeah, really heavy hitters. And I'll be honest, this script was really hard for me what to include, because you know how much I love my Chinese history.
Oh yeah,
I could talk about it for hours and it would seem like minutes. And I'm working on this content and I'm working on it, and I just kept getting lost in the weeds, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
This idea, like I want to tell everything all at once, and it was too much. Like I started to bore myself.
Yeah, totally. When I was putting together the stuff for our upcoming 30 Years War series and European history topic and all that great stuff that I love, I had the same problem. I like go back and like scrap huge sections of it, because I was like, as much as this is like interesting to me, like there's just too much here. Like we don't have hour-long podcasts, so we can have a series of like 5 episodes each. So I totally sympathize with that. But I think you landed on some really good stuff here for us today, to really kind of delve into a topic that I know we've been catching flack for almost from the beginning, because if you go all the way back, our first series, our first episodes were about the Mongols, and we teased that was going to be a 3-parter. There's only 2 episodes out there. So we got some story to finish telling before we got a new story to start telling.
We do. We absolutely do. And so I think what I did is I went back to why do we feel the Ming is important to our students, or actually to anybody? What really matters? And yes, they defeated the Mongols, right? But they defeated the Mongols during a time period where the Mongols were already quite weak. Yeah?
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And like, I think this is where we might get some discontent for people who like wanted a whole episode on the fall of the Mongols. But the headlining stuff for the Mongols is the expansion and then the Pax Mongolica. And then when things fall apart, which like starts to happen almost right after Genghis Khan dies. I mean, he pulls all of his sons together and he tells his story about like, hey, you guys got to keep working together. He pulls out an arrow. He snaps that arrow in half. And he's like, look how easy it is to break one arrow. But then he pulls out a bunch of arrows and he tries to break them and he can't. And it's like, united, you're better than you are alone, is kind of the analogy that Genghis was looking for. No one paid attention to that. The sons like briefly stayed together, but then like internal politics and divisions and just the vast scope of the Khanate, that massive Khanate that's, you know, almost all of Asia and right up on the borders of Europe and India. It's too much, and it's too many competing, you know, economic systems and personalities. And those khanates just kind of break and splinter off. So, you've got the Il Khanate, and you've got the Khanate of the Golden Horde, and you've got the Yuan Khanate, and you've got the Chagadai Khanate. Like, you have all of these different political entities, and the one we're going to center our story on is the Yuan Dynasty, which was the Khanate that was formed by Kublai Khan after he successfully conquered the southern Song dynasty and finished what Genghis had started, which was taking over China. But almost immediately, we see the Mongols become Sinified. Right, that means to become Chinese, and as a result of that, the Mongols kind of lose that connection to the steppe, and then as the Silk Road and the exchange and the movement of people that the Mongols facilitated, that we talked about in our episode on the Pax Mongolica, as that really begins to intensify, we see the spread of disease, specifically the Black Death. And as that disease moves into China, where there's an estimated 25 million people who were killed in those early outbreaks in 1343, 1345, right around that same time period that you see the devastation in Europe just a couple years prior to that. All of this really waylays the Mongols, and as a direct result of the isolation of the Yuan dynasty, the crack up of the Khanate system, and devastating disease, plus just China's tricky environmental sort of context, floods, river valleys, etc. All those things come together to really bring the Mongols down. So I know that's not what students want, but it's what Genghis Khan kind of previewed for all the people who stood against him, right? Stand against me, suffer the fate of a stone dropped in water. Well, that's kind of what ends up happening to the Mongols as well. They kind of just disappear into the inky black.
And it's don't get me wrong, the Ming still kicked out the Mongols. It's totally true. It happens. And yes, the Ming Dynasty absolutely reunified China and brought back its glory. And it's important. That is important in history. But for me, I think the coolness factor of the Ming lies more in the Zheng He voyages. And then what this dynasty is going to do that you can argue either indirectly or directly is going to lead to one of the worst events in Chinese history from a Chinese perspective, which are the Opium Wars.
Oh, yeah. Big time.
So that's what we're going to focus on.
Okay. All of that? Just a couple 500 years of history there.
Well, remember how we said this whole Mongol thing might be a 3-part series? It may be looking like a 4 or 5-part series at this stage of the game.
The Mings, there's a lot there to unpack for sure. And we'll definitely, pick out the good stuff. Always got to find the good stories.
We're going to go from Zheng He to what the happened in China. Do you see what I did there?
I hate puns.
I know you do. That's why I do it so often. All right, Matt, let's kick us off. Give us a little context about the Ming.
Kind of already did, right? We talked about the disease factor, natural disasters, floods, etc., famines. There's a corruption within the signification of the Mongols as you start to see these, sort of internal power structures break down, and then you have these different groups of people vying for power. The Kurultai system is long gone, and so all that to say that as the Mongols start to recede, it sends a message to the ethnic Han Chinese people. Those would have been the Chinese people living in China prior to the Mongol expansion. And for all of our listeners out there, you always got to keep in mind when we talk about the Chinese then and now, this is a very ethnocentric, xenophobic group of people. So the Han Chinese people, this is the core ethnic group of Chinese people. And they would read all of these events via the lens of the mandate of heaven, which is that the spirits from above, your ancestors, all the stuff that makes Mulan very interesting at the beginning, all of those people looking down on the Chinese Han population are upset about this direction of the society. And as a result of this, the bad things are happening. And the bad things signal to the peasants that it's time to roll up and take over and rebel against their government. And hopefully create a new dynasty that can solve the problems of the old dynasty. So when the rebellion then begins with the goal to bring a new dynasty to power, all of these different warlords who are leading these different groups, these families engage in civil war, creating a warring states period until one man or one group can basically be the last Highlander, if you will. A nice 50-year-old reference there. Yeah, 40 some odd year old reference there. And this person or family or group is then going to be seen as having gained the mandate of heaven, the right to rule from the gods and the ancestors, and the new ruling dynasty begins. And that's what happens. The Ming, the Shining Light dynasty, is formed, led by Zhu Wangcheng.
Close enough.
Always
I
very
know,
close. It's a the ZH is a t sound.
Yeah.
My mouth just doesn't make that shape. This all begins to take place really in 1338.
Yeah, and Yuan Tong was an interesting leader. I mean, really, to say the least. He could be considered a despot
Mhm.
or a brutal authoritarian.
I think
But
he's a despot.
I think it's a combination of both, right? Like, he really did want China to regain its power and prestige. And I do think he cared about the Chinese people. I really, really, really do. But his way of accomplishing things could be considered a skosh torturous.
Yeah, well, like when you think about a despot, like you're probably thinking about the Francois Guizot, the French statesman, the constitutional monarchist, who defined despotism as somebody who wants to gain power for the sole reason of having power for themselves. That is the goal, in and of itself. Someone like maybe an Ivan the Terrible comes
Oh,
to
yeah.
mind, as somebody whose chief main focus is to attain power, and then that's it. That's the end of it all, right? And so a ruler who has this power only uses it for their own satisfaction or their own passions. Or do you mean like more of like an enlightened despot, where this ruler has all of this power, but then utilizes that power for something better, like maybe a Napoleon Bonaparte might be a good cultural touchstone there.
All right, I can see it. Okay, I like that. A torturous, enlightened despot. Maybe that's what we go with him. Um, so yeah, and the reason we're saying this is really because he does do a lot of great things for China. He stabilizes China, brings back Confucianism. He's, the scholar gentry system, civil service exam, everything does stabilize. But in order to make that happen, he would do some, I would say, not so nice things. Like, one of the things that when I first heard about this, I'm like, there is no way this happened, but it's true. It was called the boil and scrub. A person would be actually dropped into a vat, boiling of water, then lifted out, then their skin would be scrubbed off, and then the person would be dropped back into the boiling water to die.
Yeah, definitely enlightened there. That's the
That's why I
sort
said
of thing
torturous. That's why I said torturous. Or, I mean, it could be like the death by 100 strokes.
I
And
mean, you're gonna have to write a lot of really good poems or law codes to like undo the boil and scrub. Like that is the headliner. If this is like how you run your country, you're like, hey, listen, you can either like read a book or I'm gonna boil you alive, scrub you off, and then reboil you again. Like, I don't know.
like,
The
this is
torture
where it's
metaphor.
hard to defend the enlightened despot. I get that. Or like, you could be there's this thing where you like get 1,000 knife cuts on your body, and I can't even imagine the pain. But you slowly bleed to death. So that, I mean, maybe not as bad as the boil and scrub. Still not good. Forget it.
This
He's
is
an
like
authoritarian.
trying to say like the Hellraiser. It's like an enlightened.
Got right. Oh, that movie still traumatizes me to this day.
It's
That
amazing.
is
Oh yeah.
Pinhead. It's so just. Oh my god, that's exact. Oh, ugh.
Pinhead is, in my mind, the visual for all 80s and 90s horror flicks. Just
Because
like
he was so
Pinhead.
unique. Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing. Go out there, listener, and just stop listening to the podcast right now and just find a streaming service. Watch Hellraiser. And
Oh my
come
god,
back and
it's
learn
so
more.
violent though. Yeah,
Yeah.
trigger and violent. Oh, it is ridiculously violent. Cool concept. Definitely does not hold back on the gore.
No, yeah, it's very gory. All right, so we've got Hellraiser China.
Okay.
And like we're doing lots of great stuff with this though, right? Like we're building schools or
Yeah, we're
like
doing
what's
all
going
kind-
on here?
Yeah, he does what he's supposed to do. He makes sure the government's based on a meritocracy. He's got people back in line. They're not going to rebel against him. He kind of centralizes the power within himself only to make sure that what he wants done gets done. And it works. You can't, it does. It's one of those things where, like, does the end justify the means? Probably not. but they were really scarred by Mongol rule. It's the first time a foreign power had come in and taken over China. And, Yuan Tong was damn sure he was not going to let that happen again. Like, it was not going to happen to China.
Fair enough.
But he's not the focus. He's not the focus.
No.
The big focus I want to no, because he was great to stabilize, but the coolness comes under the Yongle Emperor.
So we're talking like artist versus producer.
Yes,
so
that's
like,
exactly what.
Zheng Tong is like Phil Spector, and the Yongle Emperor is like the Ronettes.
Yeah, I can see
That's
that.
That's a good analogy.
I like that.
Yeah, and all this stuff that he does is the wall of sound. Ah, man, I should just stop teaching in podcast. This is it. I found my calling.
You found your calling. Outside of having one of the coolest names for emperors ever, Yongle, it just like rolls off the tongue. What he is most responsible for is the Zheng He voyages. And the Zheng He voyages is really what brings the awesome factor to the Ming. Not just where they went and what they did, but how effective they were across the board.
Yeah, dude. 7 voyages, 28 years long, thousands of people, warships, supply ships, vaults full of treasure that are put on these massive treasure ships.
Mm-hmm.
These ships, like 417 feet long, 171 feet wide. These are football field long ships.
That's so awesome.
They're the size of modern day American, football fields, soccer fields, those sorts of things. And then if we compare those to like ships that everybody would know as a touchstone, like the Columbian ships that Christopher Columbus voyages on, those ships are 4 times the size of the Santa Maria.
Yeah.
The largest ship that Columbus had out there. And just again, 1492, Columbus sails the ocean blue. Zheng He is out there 1405 to 1433.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like 100 years before the Europeans are doing, and I don't want to downplay like what Columbus did, but like the scale of the Zheng He voyages, moving from China, South China Sea, Southeast Asia, India, the Middle East, all the way to the east coast of Africa, and then all the way back again. Like, this is unprecedented.
Yeah, this is awesome. This is why I say they're awesome.
Yeah.
And at the head of all this, Admiral Zheng He, right? Chinese Muslim.
Ooh.
Came to China during Mongol rule. He was also a eunuch. And for those of you who don't know,
you almost made me spit out my drink there.
Who don't know what a
time
eunuch
that out a little better.
I'm sorry, that's so bad. A eunuch had lost his family jewels, his junk.
Neutered.
Neutered. There you go. Well, I don't
family
know.
podcast.
Guy.
This is our safe podcast rating is precarious.
Declining.
Yeah.
Now, there is a reason for becoming a eunuch, right? This was, if you were going to serve in a royal court in China, most likely you were going to serve close to like protecting the emperor's, whether it's his possessions, whether it's people, whatever else. And so when Zheng He was castrated, the reason for that is because he was going to be basically a protector or a guardian of the emperor's wives and concubines. And so
concubine is a person as a possession.
Yeah. Right. That's exactly right. Yeah. And so if you were going to guard them, the emperor didn't want to have to worry about anything funky going on in the palace. And so therefore the castration happened, and you'd never have to worry about your guards getting it on with the concubines or the wives.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
well played. Way to land that one.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And also, actually, total geek out moment here. I'm so excited. If any of our students or any of our listeners at all, adults included, watch anime, there's actually a show called The Apothecary Diaries, and it does a great job of showing eunuchs and their positions in a Chinese palace or court. My son no longer wants to watch anime with me because he's like, every single time we watch something, you have to point out something about history. It's getting a little old, but it was super cool. So if you get a chance, Apothecary Diaries, take a look at the role of a eunuch.
Yeah, I was about to bring up The Apothecary Diaries.
Totally. I'm sure you were.
This is my favorite show. It was right there. I was going to say that.
I knew you were. Right up there with Star Wars, right?
Yeah, love it.
So these voyages begin, and their purpose was not to discover anything. The Chinese had already known about all the places, South China Sea, East China Sea, Indian Ocean. They knew where they were sailing to. They knew the nations or regions that were involved. They weren't trying to gain any more knowledge or like take over the land because they were the Middle Kingdom. They usually were far more advanced than anyone else at that time period. All they really wanted to do with these voyages was kind of bring back their presence with authority. I was totally going to do a Cartman voice, but I can't do it. I was going to try. I can't.
My authority.
Authorita. And so that's what they wanted to do. They wanted to show the Eastern Hemisphere. China was back. They're strong. They have recovered from the Mongols, and everybody needs to love them again.
Yeah, they're out there doing essentially what Vladimir Putin's doing right now in Africa, right? They're showing up places, they're settling disputes, oftentimes using violence, sometimes with diplomacy, sometimes with economic, incentivization to come trade with the Chinese. Really what they're out there doing, though, is they're looking for tribute. They're looking for people to give the Chinese a bunch of items that would kind of secure for the Chinese this feeling of superiority. And so this might come in the form of an animal or a precious trade good or whatever. And this tribute would be earned because of the ability of China to put down some sort of problem, right? That was the point of all the troops and everybody else that was out there. And so many of these nations offer up this tribute in order to maintain like good diplomatic and trade relationships with China, which again, that's like really the point of what's going on here.
It's nothing new. China has exacted tribute for a very long time. And so, and again, like you said, it is that sense of, the idea of superiority. Come and look at us. We're awesome. You want to trade with us, and therefore you're going to have to pay us to be able to trade with us. And they did, because everybody wants the tea and the silk and the porcelain.
Yeah.
And the voyages were, say again?
No. Yeah, that totally makes sense.
And these voyages really were successful. China gained back that respect, and they gained back the power. And the Chinese leaders then, once again, were the head of, the big boy Eastern Hemisphere table.
All right. But what's like cool about this? I don't mean to like yuck your
You're
yum.
dissing on my China. You're dissing on my China.
Yeah. I mean, like the scale, all these sorts of things, like, don't get me wrong, it's very impressive, but like, what's cool about the Ming Dynasty? Like, why would you have utilized that terminology at the beginning?
For me, I think it becomes, even China's goal, or the Ming Dynasty's goal, was to show how strong and powerful China was. And that's a very nationalistic attitude. And lots of people and places have it. They don't try to do it in the same way that most nations do. Certainly not the way most nations have done, across history. They don't try to do it with war. And I find that fascinating, because when nations become super nationalistic, right, you tend to see violence be part of that component to prove the greatness of your nation or of your culture.
Yeah.
Or straight out conquering. We see that too. Not even just war, straight out conquering, which we'll see later on.
We talked about Columbus. Yeah. I mean, that was what happened there. Yeah, totally.
And don't get me wrong. I know that the Zheng He voyages were involved in battles, and they were involved in settling some disputes with violence. But that was more the exception. That was not the rule. That was not the goal, right? They did that to get tribute. But really, when they went out there through diplomatic means, China's able to accomplish his goal. And no one does doubt China after these voyages, right? And very few people lost their lives or culture in the process. And that's what I think makes them so cool. It is so refreshing to see something like this. Like, you can be proud of your culture, and you can be proud of your people, and you could be, go us go. But at the same time, you can let other people be proud of their culture and their beliefs and their religion, and not try to squash it to make yours seem better. You just don't see it that often. And that's what I think makes the Ming really cool. I don't think we see this very much at all after like 1400. You think about the Europe, and mostly Europeans, but you think about this, and how do they prove their nationalism, or how do they, go out and show nationalism? Through conquering, colonization, and war. And the Ming just didn't have to do that.
That's true. All right.
And I just think and it creates a win-win situation for everybody. We could use a little more win-win situation in the world today.
I'm not going to argue with that.
All right. Okay. It is.
Right.
And maybe we get rid of this us versus them mentality, and realize that we can all be great, and we can all be proud, and everybody can still do their own thing.
Dude, I'm on board with all that. That part, yes, 100%, 100.
The other reason these Zheng He voyages are so cool, unicorns.
No, what unicorns?
Unicorns.
No,
Dude, okay. I'm
nope,
telling
not
you,
real.
unicorn.
Not a real thing.
All right,
Not like
maybe
aliens. Aliens are real. Bigfoot's real. Unicorns are not.
okay, maybe not unicorns, but the Chinese did think they were. They were on the, I think they're on the east coast of Africa, and an African merchant had brought the Chinese an animal with horns, and they totally believed it was a unicorn.
Nope. I could see like a one-horned gazelle or like a rhinoceros, but that's like on the nose, not on the forehead. So the Chinese are like off on that one. Like, no, nope, not
Okay,
a
it
real
wasn't.
thing.
It was not a one-horned gazelle. It was not a rhinoceros. You get one more guess.
Not a one-horned gazelle, not a rhinoceros. I mean, I would guess like a narwhal, but that's not in Africa. But that would be
No.
the only acceptable choice.
You ready for this?
Mm-hmm.
It was, in fact, a giraffe.
Not even close to a unicorn. Everything about that is wrong. Everything cool that you just said about China for like the last 20 minutes, totally undone by this giraffe shenanigans, is what I'm going to call it. Look, first of all, the head of the giraffe is on the long neck. Like the horn comes out of the head. So it's all backwards there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Second of all, a giraffe has on top of its head two little horns. They're like those little
Wait, what if they
nubby
grew
little
together?
things.
You don't know.
I'm positive that if I was looking at a giraffe for the first time ever, I would not fixate on like the one horn on top of its head. Like that would be the fifth thing I noticed. So, and then I wouldn't like after that be like, oh yeah, it's a unicorn, of course. Why didn't I think of that? Duh. Like no. I'm not there for that. It's a bad.
I still think it's a cool story.
Bad
I still think
take,
it's a cool
China.
story.
It's a story. It's a thing. It's not cool. Not cool at all. Way to go, China. Way
Maybe
to go,
this is
Zheng
what maybe this is what led to the end of the voyages, right? They were so far off
Yes.
the giraffe. They're like, we can't do this anymore. All we're doing is proving that we don't know anything, so we just got to stop. Because eventually the voyages do stop. In 1433, Chinese officials decide that we can't do this anymore, and there will be no more Zheng He voyages.
I don't know about that, though. Okay, so, all right. Unfortunate unicorn take. However, you got a lot of tribute, you got a lot of trade partners, you got a lot going on there. Why stop?
It's expensive. I mean, that would be my guess, right? I mean, think about the amount of money and resources that have to be used to create, 20,000 people on the first voyage alone were involved. The unbelievable amount of ships, including the humongous treasure ships. I mean, the price of the food alone that you would need for those journeys the cost would be astronomical. And so I think it was too prohibitive. And I think a lot of Chinese officials felt that the money could be better spent elsewhere. Maybe investing back in, like agriculture or back in the manufacturing sectors, right?
That's true. Yeah. I mean, you got to solve those Mongol problems, right? Mandate of heaven stuff like we were talking about earlier. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. I'll buy that. Yeah.
And then we also have to think about this. One of the most important things at the forefront of the Chinese minds is we can never let what happened from the Mongols ever happen to us again. We cannot let a foreign power take us over. And remember, at this point in Chinese history, China hadn't really been invaded by the sea.
Yeah, that's
so the
totally
sea border
true.
was not their threat. What was
the
constantly
northern border?
Yes,
yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
That going all the way back to the original Ming Dynasty, right? The beginnings of the Great Wall. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Reinvest in the Great Wall. Reinvest in securing against another Mongol-like attack from the north, from the boundary areas. I wouldn't even say that's paranoia. This has been classic Chinese foreign policy going back to the very beginning of the dynastic system. Build up your defenses, pay off the barbarians, and finish the wall, which is one of the things the Ming are famous for, right? The Great Wall.
Yeah,
you can go there and buy tchotchkes out today and all that sort of stuff. That's a Ming thing.
Yeah, they're totally responsible for the tchotchkes. That's exactly it.
Well, the wall where you buy the
Yeah, the wall.
chassis. Yeah.
So yeah, and that's what they decide to do, right? Because traditionally that's where they've been invaded from. So they're going to pull back the resources from the Zheng He voyages. They're going to finish the Great Wall. They're going to make sure they're protected from those northern nomadic invaders, Mongols or any other group. And that's great. There's nothing wrong with that. But here's the deal. I'm not sure, and I don't even know if they could have, but the long-term ramifications of stopping the Zheng He voyages are going to be felt by China in the future. They are. There are indirectly, but still there, stopping those voyages and eventually limiting contact with outside groups is going to lead to the Opium Wars in the 1800s. And that changes Chinese history for a very long time.
Yeah, totally. And then I think that's a good place for us to pick up in our next episode. I think
I agree.
a good foreshadow there. China doesn't know what it doesn't know. And
That's right.
I can't wait to get into part 2.
Oh, I know.
Right? So loyal listeners, that's going to end our story for today, but it's not the end of the story. If you enjoyed this episode, go back, check out some of our other stuff. You can find us Spotify, iTunes, Twitter, Instagram, all the places on the internet where people want to be. Guess what? We're there. And if you find us and you like us, go ahead, leave us a comment. Simple for the algorithm, FTA. You don't even have to say more than that, but rate, review, help us out as much as possible. And then if we ever get our act together, we'll get our Patreon up. We got to figure out what we want to do with that one, or if we even need to, or whatever. But we do appreciate all the support, all the people out there who will help us out. Our intro, outro music from Addington Ridge Music Collective helped us out with that. And then, all the people who are out there, appreciate all that support. Thank you, listeners, for all that you do for us.
All right. And until next time, stay curious.
Bye.